Hello again. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy over here for EliTheComputerGuy.com and EverymanIT.com. Today's class is variables and print in PHP programming. So we are continuing upon the PHP programming track. This is going to be the last class before we start doing things that I think are pretty cool. So this is kind of like still a little monotonous, still a little tedious, but you have to understand about variables and printing in PHP before you can go on any further to start to do some more interesting stuff. So today we are going to talk about how to set variables and then how we can use the print function to print the variables out onto a web browser screen. So basically we can create a variable such as somebody's name and then print out on a web browser screen, hello, whatever their name is. So this is going to be a pretty simple class today, but with all these things that I go over in PHP programming, remember you have to do everything exactly perfect. If you forget to put in a semicolon or if you forget to close a quotation mark or any of that, the program will not work at all. So although this stuff may seem very simple, remember in programming, whether it's PHP or JavaScript or anything else, it is very exact. If you don't put in the exact correct thing, it will all go bad. Now with the variables and the print command, I am going to leave out some things that you might find in a normal PHP programming textbook. The reason is because as you guys know, I am trying to teach you in the most basic way possible so that you don't get confused, frustrated, and give up and throw your hands up. So I am leaving out some information that most PHP textbooks would give you because I think it confuses the situation. What I'm showing you today, I can easily build on later, and there's nothing to get confused about. You can see it, you can understand it, it works, we can move on to the next class. Whereas if I showed you some other stuff that other PHP textbooks might show you, you might get confused, then you might start having problems, then you might get frustrated, and you might say, ugh, I'm not doing PHP. So this is just the basics, but it's very important. So this class, variables and print in PHP programming, give me a second and we'll dive right in. So let's talk about variables in the PHP programming language. The first thing that you have to realize about programming in PHP, if you have seen other programming languages, is you do not have to declare what type of variable you are dealing with in PHP. So in other programming languages, you have to say whether a variable is an integer, a float, a Boolean, MySQL, blob. You have to tell the program what type of information that you're giving it. In the PHP programming language, they make it easier by not forcing you to declare the variable and say what kind of variable that you are giving it. You simply create the variable and then you set it when you create it. So that's all you have to do. If you don't understand what I'm talking about with floats and integers and Boolean, don't worry about it. That's something that other programming languages have to worry about. If you know what I'm talking about, though, just realize in PHP you don't have to worry about it. In PHP, you only have three types of variables. You have strings, you have integers, and you have arrays. That is all you have. So that's just so you understand that. So when you're creating your PHP script, you know, you do the angle bracket question mark PHP, and then remember at the end of your script, you do question mark again, and angle bracket. You open the PHP script, and then you close the PHP script. So remember, you always have to do this whenever you're doing PHP programming. If you forget this, nothing's going to work right. Why? Because remember, this is what tells the interpreter on the server that what follows is a PHP script. This closing is what tells the interpreter on the server that the PHP script has ended. So by doing these two tags, you're saying everything inside of this is a PHP script. All you have to do to declare or to set, create and set a variable is the first thing is you do a $sign. So in PHP programming, the $sign is what is required to create a variable. And then after that, you can name it with, it has to start with an alphabetical letter or an underscore, and then you can have letters or numbers in it. So you would do, let's say, $sign, and you could say lowercase variable. So this creates the variable, $sign variable. So it's all lowercase, all alphabetical. Again, remember, in PHP programming gets very specific about capitalization, is that $sign lowercase variable is different than $sign uppercase variable, which is different than $sign uppercase V lowercase riable. All of these three variables are different variables even though they're spelled the same. You know, when you're dealing with PHP, when you're dealing with programming, when you're dealing with Linux, capitalization matters. This is a different variable than this, which is a different variable than this. This is very important to remember. This is why when you start programming, you need to come up with a pattern for how you write code. Is everything you're going to do lowercase? Is everything you're going to do uppercase? Is everything you're going to do one uppercase and then the rest lowercase? Generally, I would say with PHP, just do the $sign and then just keep it all lowercase. But it's very important. This is different than this, which is different than this, even though it has been spelled the same. So this is how we create the variable. So simply by doing this, we have created the variable, $sign variable. Now, if we want to set the variable, what setting the variable means is that we want to give the variable a value. We want this variable to mean something. If we're going to be doing a string or a word, then you do space, equal sign, space, double quotation marks, and then whatever you want this word to say, or this, let's say, sentence or word to say. So let's say we say, hello, world, and then you close a quotation marks, and then as I've talked about with PHP programming to remember, is that the semicolon is the equivalent of a period in an English sentence. So we are creating the variable, we are setting it to be hello world, and then you have to close, you have to end with the semicolon. So $sign variable, space equals hello world. So we have now created the variable, $sign variable, and we have set the value of the variable to be hello world. If we want to do a number, all you would do is again $sign, then let's say number. So this creates the $sign number variable. You do a space equals, and then with numbers, generally, and for our class, you don't put any quotation marks. You simply put the number that you want it to be. So $sign number equals, let's say 1. And then how do you end? With a semicolon. So for the class that I am teaching you now, for what I am teaching you, when you do words or when you do sentences, you're going to do double quotation marks. Open the double quotation mark, close the double quotation marks. Semicolon at the end. If you're going to be doing numbers, you just do equal and then the number. So it can be 1, it can be 1.1, it can be 1,000. It doesn't matter. Whatever number it is number, space, equals, and then that number, and then semicolon. So this is all that is required to create the variable within the PHP script and then set it to whatever value you want it to be, whether you want it to be hello world, whether you want it to be somebody's name, whether you want it to be a number. This is the basic way that you create and set variables within PHP. It's going to get a little more complicated later, but this is the basic concept. Now you will notice I said that there are 3 types of variables within PHP, types of variables. We have numbers, we have strings, and we have something called arrays. So, since we're trying to be simple, I am going to leave arrays for a different class, a couple classes from now. Arrays can get kind of complicated. So as far as you are concerned with variables right now, you just have numbers and you just have strings. Basically, you just have words or sentences. Hello world, Bob, whatever you want. So you do $, the variable name, space equals, quotation marks, hello world, close quotation marks, semicolon. If you're doing a number, $, the name of the variable, space equals, and then the number. So it can be 1,000, it can be 1, it can be 1.1. As with everything in PHP, remember, you have to end with the semicolon. The semicolon is the period within the PHP programming language. So now that you understand how to create and set variables, let's talk about print. So up until this point in this PHP track, I have shown you print command a number of times. So you have already seen it, so you have an idea of how print is used. So print prints out on the web browser screen whatever text you tell it to print. So with the general print function, again, you open PHP, you close PHP, and then all you do is you do print. And then if you want to just print some words, you would do space, let's say, then you do the double quotation marks. And then if you're going to do hello world, then you close the quotation marks, and then you do semicolon. So print, double quotation marks, hello world, close double quotation marks, semicolon. So that means when you go to this page in a web browser, you will see hello world printed out on the web browser. It'll simply say hello world, so it'll print out that text. So print hello world. That is all there is to the print command. You just have to remember that print prints out the text that you tell it to print. Now, something that's very important to understand is that print is going to print out the text to the web browser. Now, remember, web browsers are formatted using HTML or CSS, so on. So if you want whatever text you're writing to look fancy or have any formatting, you have to tell the print command what HTML tags you want it to print. So if you want it to print, let's say, hello world in H1, so it'll be nice and big and bold when it shows up on the web browser, you have to do space, print, double quotation marks, tag, H1, then you do hello world, close the H1 tag, double quotation marks, semicolon. So what will happen now is it'll print out hello world in the H1 formatting for HTML. So this is important to understand with the print command. Print is going to simply print out the text that you tell it to print. If you want any of this formatting on the web page, you have to add it to this print command. So H1 hello world, H3 hello world, paragraph align equals center to have the text aligned centered. Text color, any of that. This PHP is going to print out the text in an HTML file. The web browser is then going to read that HTML information and then format the text based on that HTML information. So this can get very confusing for people in PHP. PHP just prints out the text, so you have to actually give it all these tags to print out. Then the web browser reads all that HTML formatting and then makes the page look all fancy. Now, once we get into variables in print, it's still pretty simple. So let's say we want the print command. We want to print out a message. So we still want to print out a message, let's say hello world. So first, we would create and set the variable. So we will create a variable, $, lowercase message, space equals, double quotation marks, hello world, close double quotation marks, semicolon. So this creates the $ message variable and sets this variable to say hello world. So now message is equal to hello world. Now what we can do is we can use the print command. We can do print space, double quotation marks, and then within that we do message. So all we do is we call this message variable. So print space, double quotation marks, then we just put the name of the variable, $ message in quotation marks, semicolon. So when this gets called by the PHP script, it will print, it will look for what the value of this variable is, and then it will simply print the value of the variable. So now, instead of saying print hello world, you're saying print the message or the value of the message variable, and that gets you to hello world. So this is how the print command allows you to print variables. So print double quotation mark and then the variable. So you could have, let's say, $name equals double quotation marks Eli. Close double quotation marks, semicolon. So if we did print space double quotation marks $name close double quotation marks, semicolon, when this gets called by the script, it would then print out Eli. Why? Because the value of the variable name is Eli. So this is going to become more important once we start dealing with databases and more complicated things. This value of the variable will change depending on certain circumstances, and so it will print out different things. So the important thing for you to understand is now you can print the value of the variable name. You don't actually put Eli in here. In the future, this is going to make things dynamic. So again, it's going to print the value of the variable. Through your programming, you will be able to change the value of the variable based on different circumstances. So then this will dynamically change. So sometimes the name may be Bob. So when you do print name, Bob will show up. Maybe sometimes the variable will be named Mary. So when you call the name, Mary will show up. So this is why you would do print a variable versus hard coding in here, let's say print Eli, because as the name changes, the value of the variable changes, you'll be able to print the value of the variable versus a static name. So this is all there is for the print command, as we're learning now, and how to use the print command with variables. You create the variable $message equals hello world. Then you do print double quotation marks $message, for that's a variable, close quotation mark, semicolon. That will print the value of the variable out on your web browser screen. Again, with this though, it's going to simply print out pure text, pure ASCII text. If you want any kind of formatting, then you'll actually have to tell it to print the H1, the H2, the H3, whatever HTML formatting tags you want to have in here to make the words all fancy. So this is how the print command works, and this is how you can use print and variables together. So as with almost everything in computers, a lot of times when you just see me writing this stuff out on the whiteboard, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense with the variables and the print. So let's go on to my computer and I will actually show you how this works. So I'll use Notepad++, I'll code out some of this stuff, then we'll actually see it in a web browser so you can see a real live demonstration on how this works. It's really not that complicated, it's pretty simple, you just have to be very exacting in what you do. If you do things exactly right, it'll work very well. And if you're fat-thumbed, it won't be good. So let's go on the computer and I'll show you how this all really works. So here we are at my Windows 7 computer again. I have Notepad++ open and I am connected to my FTP server. So as I've said before, I simply have a GoDaddy account. So all the code that I write here, I upload to the normal GoDaddy hosting account, and then I'm able to run the scripts through the web browser. So in order to do this example, the first thing we need to do is call PHP. So as I've said before, we have to open the PHP script, and then we'll go down, enter, and close it. So you do angle bracket, $PHP, then give yourself a few spaces, and then you close PHP by doing angle bracket. Remember, in PHP, you have to open, and then you have to close. Now what we're going to do is we are going to create a variable.
So for this variable, at first, we are going to do a message. So normally we do hello world. So when we do a program for the first time, we say hello world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the message hello world and then call it within the print command. So what I'm going to do is I do $sign. So remember, all variables start with the $sign. Then they have to start with either a letter or an underscore. And so for this, I'll just do message. And do remember that capitalization matters. So lowercase message is different than uppercase message. Then all I do is equal. I do space. Then this is a string. So we do quotation marks. Hello world. Close quotation marks. So again, PHP open, close, and then as I've been talking about in the PHP track, whenever you give a command to PHP, just like in the English language, as a period for the end of the sentence, PHP uses a semicolon. So what this does is this declares and sets the variable. So it says it creates the variable message, and then it sets the variable message to be hello world. And it's that simple. So this is creating our first variable. Then what we do to call this variable is we then go down and go print, and then we do space, then we go quotation marks again. But now all we do is we do $sign message, and remember that the capitalization matters. Lowercase is different than uppercase. Then we close the quotation marks, like I said before, and then we do the semicolon. So up here, we create and we set the variable. So we set the variable $sign message. We make it equal to hello world. And then down here, we will print the message hello world. So whenever you do the print, for now, do quotation marks. So right now during my classes to you, I want you to do double quotation marks. You can do single quotation marks, but it will give you something different. So for now, just always do double quotation marks. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit save, and then we're going to hit upload. Now we'll go to Google Chrome, and so right now this is blank because this was a blank file before. So this is www.elitheComputerGuy.com/the test folder /test.php, and I will hit reload, and look at that. It now printed hello world. So if we go back, we created the variable message. We made that variable mean hello world. We set the variable as hello world. And then we printed the message. So when we go to call the PHP script in a web browser, it now prints out hello world. See how simple that is. It really is that simple. Now when you're doing print, the important thing to remember with the print command is that this is dynamically creating your HTML code. So right now when I said message hello world, all it does is print in normal ASCII text, hello world. Now in web browsers use HTML for formatting, right? So if we wanted to make this message look different, we would have to also print the HTML tags. So if I go in here and within the double quotation marks, I then put the HTML tags, so H1, and then close H1. So what this does is this is HTML. So it says in heading 1, print the variable message and then close heading 1. So I save that. I upload that. I go back, I hit refresh, and look at that. So now hello world is now in H1 heading. So if we go down, just to show you how this works, if I wanted to do, let's say I wanted to do message 2 equals, this is cool. So here I create and I set this variable. So I create the variable message2 $message2 equals open double quotation marks. This is cool. close with the double quotation marks, and then the semicolon, because semicolon is like the period. Then I go and I hit enter, and I do print. And then I can do, let's say, just to show you how this works, H3, so heading 3, message 2, H3. So these are just normal HTML tags, close, double quotation marks, semicolon. So now it'll print message number 2 with the heading 3 tag. I hit save, I upload. So always remember, save and then upload. Don't try to upload first. It'll cause you problems. We refresh. And now we see, so hello world, that variable, was printed an H1 tag, and then this is cool was printed under the H3 tag. So this is how you are going to start dynamically printing web pages. So the important thing to remember is that the variable is set here, the message that you're going to say, but then within this print code, you're going to have to actually give it the tags that you want it to use. So like if you want to do this as a line equals center, so this will align that particular message to the center using standard HTML. There we go. So the variable string stays the same. You just aligned it to the center. Now with numbers, numbers are very easy. So let's say I want to create a variable number. So right now we are simply printing things. In the future we're going to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and all kinds of fancy number stuff. Right now we're just printing numbers. So if I create the variable number, what I first do is I do a $, number, space, equals, and then with a number, you don't have to put these quotation marks. The reason is because with numbers, you're going to be able to add and subtract and do mathematical things with them. So you can just put whatever number you want it to be. So if I want it to be 1, I can do 1. If I want it to be 1,000, I can do 1,000. Then all I do is I do the semicolon again. So what this says is number equals 1,000. So in the future, you know, this might be the interest rate that we're multiplying by. This may be some number we're doing some fancy stuff with. Right now, this is just simply how you set a number. Now I can go down, and if I want to print that number, all I do is I do print, space, double quotation marks, and you say the number is, and then you call the number variable, number. Again, $, and the word. Remember, capitalization matters. Then you do double quotation marks to end, and then the semicolon, because that is like the period on a sentence. Then we hit save. Then we hit upload. We go to the web browser. We refresh, and look, the number is 1,000. So this is how you use normal text, this is how you use HTML formatting, and this is how you use variables when you're calling the print command. So the print is going to print whatever text you give it out onto the web browser window. If you don't have it print any HTML tags, then it's just going to be just normal ASCII text. If you want it to print HTML, then you have to put all of these HTML tags in here. So as you can see, you know, the hello world is H1, the this is cool is H3 aligned center, and the number is call 1000. This is just in normal ASCII text. And so really that is all there is to variables, the basic understanding of variables and the print command in PHP. As with all these things, this seems really dirt simple right now, but it will matter. You know, we're going to start doing a little small application development pretty soon, and so being able to print and being able to create these variables will matter. So to create and set the variable, it's $, whatever you're going to call the variable. It has to start with a letter or an underscore, space, equals, and then if you're going to do a word or a what's called a string, so like a whole sentence of words, you do double quotation mark, whatever you want to say, and then close the double quotation mark. Then you do the semicolon at the end. That's like the period on a sentence. So this creates and sets message to equal hello world. Then here we create and set message to equal this is cool. These, because they're strings, because they are words, whenever you're doing words, you do double quotation marks. When we go to do the number, though, because numbers work a little differently, we create the variable number. So we do $number space equals, and then we just put whatever number it is. Like here, 1,000. So the important thing, again, when we're dealing with numbers in PHP, is we don't have to declare what kind of variables these are. So we don't have to declare these as an int, or declare these as a float, or declare these as a bool. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. If you do know what I'm talking about, just realize that you don't have to do it. You simply create the variable, then you set the variable. You don't have to do what's called declaring the variable. Then when you go to print, all the print command is the print command is going to print the text that you tell it to print onto the web browser screen. So whatever text it tells you to print, it will print onto the web browser screen. And so it's important to remember the web browsers only understand HTML formatting. They don't understand other text formatting. So we do print, double quotation marks, whatever HTML tag we want, the variable, we close the HTML tag. Then we do the semicolon. So this is a complete command. Then print this, and then print this. Now, in the PHP world, when you're doing print, you can use what is the \n for multiple lines. So this is good to see that you can do it, but it also can cause you some problems. So let's say I wanted to say print, and then I do space, double quotation marks, and I say I want this sentence to show up on 2 lines. In quotation marks, semicolon. So what I want to do is I want to print this sentence and I want it to show up on 2 lines. Well, one of the ways that you can print, you can split a line in PHP so that it'll print on another line, is you can do backspace n. When PHP sees this, it will automatically split this sentence. So this will be on one line, then this is the next line command, and so it will then print the rest on the next line. There's a problem with this, though, as I showed you in another class. So let me save that and upload, because you always save that and upload. Now if I go here and I do refresh, oops, well, it's all on the same line as the number is 1,000. So I want this sentence to show up on 2 lines. As you notice, it's all on 1 line still. The reason is because remember, this web browser views all this text and will format this text based on HTML. So if I go and I go to view page source, you will see that, look at this, all this text was printed on 1 line, and then I want this sentence, it hit that next line, the backspace n, and it did print the rest of the sentence on the next line, but it did that as text. So look at this. Hello world, this is cool, number is 1,000. In text formatting, this is all in 1 line. But because we put in HTML tags, it all shows up as multiple lines. Now, when we did the next line with the PHP code, it made PHP print the text onto 2 lines. But because that wasn't formatted in HTML, it still shows up on 1 line. So this mess here, the number is 1,000, blah, blah, blah. This is what can happen if you don't put in the right HTML tags. Remember, web browsers format the text based on the HTML tags that you give it. So if you create, if you have print and you print on 500 lines, but you don't put any HTML tags in there, it's just going to turn out into one big mess of one single line. So that's just something to understand as you're doing PHP programming. I know a lot of new people, you see this next line, and then you use it, and then everything still seems to be a mess, and you can't figure out what's going on. The reason is because this backspace space in means the text will be printed on a new line. But if the HTML formatting isn't there, then you can have problems. So yeah, that's all there is to it. So like with this, if I wanted this to show up in the web browser as the next line, I would do angle bracket break. This is the HTML tag to do a break or next line. We save, we upload, and now because we have HTML in there, we now see it shows up and splits the sentence into two different lines. So again, there's a difference between text formatting and HTML formatting. If you don't understand that or don't understand that it could cause a problem, well, it can be a major headache. So now that you've seen that, if you ever have problems with printing, things don't look right, it is most likely because you messed up the HTML formatting. So that's all there is to it. $, whatever the name of the variable is, space equals, quotation marks, whatever you're trying to say in quotation marks, semicolon. Numbers, $, whatever the variable is called, space equals, and then the number. Again, we do not have to set the variable as Boolean or float or any of that. When we go to print, we can do print, again, quotation mark, and whatever we want to say. We can either print the variable, we can print just normal text, we can print normal text and a variable. At the end, you close a quotation mark, do semicolon. And then if you want to print things onto numerous lines, you can use this next line command. But again, remember, that's not going to be read by HTML. HTML, a web browser, will require that you put in this HTML tag. So with that, I think it's pretty easy. So let's go out to the real world and have some final thoughts.
So that's all there is to variables and print in PHP programming. Or let me not say that that's all there is, but that's what you need to understand right now. Again, there are more complicated concepts, there are more complicated things you will have to understand in the future about variables and print in PHP. But right now, this is the basic information you need in order to start doing some very interesting things. Again, if you go into the PHP textbooks, they're going to teach you a lot of other stuff, and it's most likely going to confuse you. What I've shown you today, just stick with it, stick with this track, and I swear you will be good. It'll be very easy, and pretty soon we'll be able to start doing some interesting things. So again, as I talked about with the variables, remember, to create and set a variable, you start with a $, whatever the variable name is. It has to start with a letter or an underscore, and then the rest can be, all letters, or you can have letters and numbers in here. So on the demonstration, I had message and message to, so you can do that. But you can't have $to message. That won't work. So you can have $message to. It has to be an underscore or a letter to begin with. Then you do space equals space. If you're saying a word or a string, which means a sentence, you would do double quotation marks. Let's say hello world. Close double quotation marks and semicolon. Semicolon, semicolon, semicolon. Semicolon is a period in PHP. So this will create the message variable and it sets it to hello world. In order to then print the value of this variable, you will do print space double quotation marks $message close double quotation marks colon semicolon. Semicolon is a period for everything in PHP. That means when this script gets called by a web browser, it will then print out hello world. Again, this has no HTML formatting in it. So since we're opening this up in a web browser, if you want there to be any HTML formatting, you have to give that to the print function. So you would have to do the tag. So tag h1 align equals center. That would then print hello world in big letters in the middle of the page. Again, remember when you're printing that the web browser only interprets the HTML formatting. So if we do the backspace n, so that means next line, if there's no HTML formatting with that, it will print the text on the next line, but then HTML doesn't see any formatting, so the HTML in the web browser will bring it back and it'll all be on the same line. So remember, text formatting and HTML formatting are different. When you're dealing with numbers at this point, it's the same with the text or the string variables. You would do $, number, whatever you want to call the variable, space equals, but then you only put the number, whether it's 1, 1,000, 1.1, 1.1995, whatever number it is, you create the variable, then you set it to that number with no double quotation marks. No double quotation marks, and then you do semicolon. Again, I think this is the simplest way to teach you guys, so you may see it differently somewhere else, but just follow me here. If you need to learn PHP, I think this is going to be the easiest way for you. But if you understand this right now, the stuff that we're going to start doing is going to start getting a lot easier and a lot more fun. PHP is a pretty simple programming language. Again, as long as you understand these basics and as long as you don't get confused and frustrated with a whole bunch of stuff that probably doesn't matter to you anyway. So as you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy over here for EliTheComputerGuy.com and EverymanIT.com. Today's class was variables and print in PHP programming. We are going to have more and more classes in this track, and like I say, it's going to start getting interesting pretty soon. So if you stick around, I look forward to seeing you at the next class.